She sabotaged my college apps. I exposed her cheating scandal to the whole school. Funny how karma works, isn't it? One minute you're watching your future crumble because of someone else's jealousy, and the next you're watching them lose everything they built on lies. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to where it all began. Senior year. The home stretch. The final boss level before real life. I'd been busting my ass since freshman year to build the perfect college application. We're talking straight A's despite taking every AP class my school offered, volleyball team captain, debate club president, and volunteering at the animal shelter every weekend. Not because I was some try-hard perfectionist, okay, maybe a little, but because I had my sights set on Columbia University since I was 12. My dad went there, before the cancer took him junior year. Columbia wasn't just a school to me. It was the last piece of him I could hold on to. Brianna Peterson knew that. My so-called best friend since 7th grade knew exactly what Columbia meant to me. We'd stayed up countless nights planning our futures, me at Columbia, her at NYU. Close enough to still hang out on weekends, far enough to have our own lives. Perfect, right? Wrong. December 15th. Early decision notification day. I still remember sitting at my desk, staring at my laptop, palm sweat creating little fingerprint smudges on my trackpad. Heart slamming against my ribs like it was trying to escape before the bad news arrived. The email notification popped up and I swear time stopped. "Dear applicant, we regret to inform you." The words blurred. My brain refused to process them. This wasn't possible. My counselor said I was a shoo-in. My essays were perfect. My extracurriculars checked every box. What the actual fuck happened? I called Brianna immediately. Because that's what best friends do, right? They hold you while you ugly cry over shattered dreams. She didn't pick up. 3 hours later, she posted on Instagram a picture of her holding an NYU acceptance letter with the caption, "Dreams do come true. De future Violet." I double-tapped out of habit, then texted congrats. Still nothing back from her. Weird, but whatever. I was too numb to care about social etiquette. 2 days of radio silence later, I was sitting in the college counselor's office, trying to figure out backup plans with puffy, sleep-deprived eyes. Mr. Hannigan seemed genuinely confused by Columbia's decision. "This makes no sense, Alexis. Your application was stellar. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I would have bet my pension you'd get in." That's when he said the words that made my stomach drop through the floor. "The only issue was that email from your recommender retracting her strong recommendation. But I assumed you knew about that." The room tilted sideways. "What email? What retraction?" Ms. Winters, my AP Lit teacher, had practically promised to write me a recommendation that would make admission officers weep with joy. Mr. Hannigan pulled up the email on his computer and turned the screen toward me. The message was from Ms. Winters' email address, sent 2 days before decisions came out. "Upon further consideration, I need to amend my recommendation for Alexis Chen. Recent incidents of academic dishonesty have come to light that make me question her character and suitability for Columbia University." The email went on to describe how I'd supposedly plagiarized my final paper and had been caught cheating on tests multiple times. All lies. Complete, utter bullshit. Ms. Winters was horrified when I showed her the email. "I never sent this, Alexis. I would never say these things about you." The IT investigation took less than a day. Someone had accessed Ms. Winters' school email account from a computer in the library. The login had happened during 6th period AP Statistics, the one class I didn't share with Brianna, but the surveillance camera footage from the library computer lab showed exactly who had sent that email. My best friend's face, illuminated by the blue light of the monitor, smirking as she typed the words that would destroy my future. The betrayal wasn't a knife in my back, it was a goddamn chainsaw. My insides felt hollowed out, scraped raw. I spent that night curled around my toilet, dry heaving between sobs until my throat burned and my ribs ached. Why? The question pounded in my head like a migraine. Why would she do this? The answer came through Jessica, our mutual friend, who called me in tears the next day. "Brianna told me not to tell you, but this is so fucked up. She said she couldn't let you go to Columbia because she got rejected from NYU." My brain short-circuited, but she posted her acceptance letter. It was fake. She photoshopped it. She didn't get in anywhere yet, and she couldn't stand the thought of you succeeding when she failed. She said if she had to start at community college, at least you'd be there with her. The numbness that had cocooned me since rejection day evaporated, replaced by something white-hot and electric. This bitch had torched my future because she couldn't handle her own failures. 7 years of friendship, hundreds of secrets shared, thousands of inside jokes, all worth less than her fragile ego. I lay in bed that night, staring at my ceiling, tears dried into salty tracks on my temples. The sadness was still there, but something else had taken root alongside it. Something cold and calculating that whispered, "She deserves to lose everything too." Columbia was doing a review of my application after Mr. Hannigan explained the situation, but the damage was done. Even if they reversed their decision, early admission was gone. My dad's dream for me hung by a thread. My phone buzzed. A text from Brianna. "Want to get coffee tomorrow? Haven't seen you in days." As if nothing had happened. As if she hadn't destroyed the one thing that mattered most to me. I texted back, "Sure. Usual spot at 4? She replied instantly, "Perfect. Need to tell you about this cute guy in my calc class." My fingers hovered over the screen. In that moment, I made a decision. Brianna Peterson thought she knew me, thought she could predict how I'd react, how I'd crumble, how I'd settle for less just like she had to. But she had no idea what I was capable of. I pulled out my laptop and created a new document titled Operation College Counselor. If Brianna wanted to play games with college admissions, I'd show her how it's really done. First rule of revenge: know your enemy better than they know themselves. And I knew Brianna Peterson better than anyone in the world. You know what's worse than finding out your best friend sabotaged your future? Having to pretend you don't know. Having to smile in her face while your insides are screaming. But that's exactly what I had to do. The coffee shop was our spot since freshman year. The baristas knew our orders by heart. Caramel macchiato for her, cold brew for me. I got there 15 minutes early, not because I was eager to see the backstabbing traitor, but because I needed time to compose myself. To make sure I could look her in the eyes without lunging across the table. When Brianna walked in, all bouncy ponytail and designer backpack, wearing the Columbia sweatshirt I'd given her last Christmas, the fucking audacity, something shifted inside me. It was like watching a stranger wearing my friend's skin. Everything about her was suddenly suspect, her smile too wide, her laugh too loud. "Oh my God, I've missed you." She threw her arms around me like she hadn't just nuked my life from orbit. Senior year is just so crazy busy, right? I hugged her back, mechanical and stiff, totally insane. "I still can't believe Columbia didn't see how amazing you are." She stirred her drink, eyes downcast in fake sympathy. Their loss, honestly. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. Yeah, weird how things work out sometimes. Everything happens for a reason, though. Maybe this is like the universe telling you that Columbia wasn't your path. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. "Besides, now maybe we can be roomies at community college. It'll be so fun." Fun. Like setting my future on fire was just a cute little prank. "Have you told your mom yet? About Columbia?" she asked, eyes gleaming with something I'd never noticed before. Something hungry. "Not yet." The lie slipped out easily. In reality, my mom and I had spent hours on the phone with Columbia's admissions office. The investigation into the fake email was ongoing, but they'd been surprisingly understanding. Not that Brianna needed to know that. She nodded, satisfied. "It's probably for the best. I mean, your mom was so set on you following in your dad's footsteps. She would be crushed." That's when it clicked. Brianna wasn't just jealous of my potential acceptance. She wanted to see me suffer. To watch me break the news to my grieving mother that I'd failed to fulfill my dead father's dream. She wanted the full spectacle of my devastation. I'd known this girl since we got paired together in 7th grade science class. I'd held her hair back when Brad Reynolds dumped her before homecoming. I'd stayed up all night helping her study for the SATs. I'd kept her secrets, celebrated her victories, defended her to anyone who called her shallow or mean. And all that time she'd been waiting for me to fail. "Actually," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded, "I think I'm going to apply to NYU too. Since you loved it so much, maybe I should check it out." The flash of panic across her face was brief but unmistakable. "Oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. Their applications closed weeks ago. I'm sure I can get an extension. My counselor has connections." Another lie, but worth it to see the color drain from her cheeks. But wouldn't it be weird? Both of us at the same school? I kind of wanted my own fresh start, you know. The selfishness was breathtaking. She'd torpedoed my dream school, but heaven forbid I encroach on hers. "Just thinking out loud," I said, shrugging. "Anyway, tell me about this calc guy." For the next 45 minutes, I performed the role of best friend while taking mental notes of every inconsistency in her stories, every hint about her actual college status, every crack in her carefully constructed image. By the time we hugged goodbye, I had enough ammunition to start a war. But I wasn't going to start a war. I was going to end one before she even knew it had begun. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with fragments of conversations, text messages, shared secrets. 7 years of friendship is a lot of intelligence gathering, if you look at it the right way. And I was definitely looking at it the right way now. I opened my laptop and started a new document. This one I titled The Peterson File. First, I listed what I knew for certain. 1. Brianna had sabotaged my Columbia application by sending a fake email from Ms. Winters. Dusra, she had lied about getting into NYU. Mundram, she expected me to go to community college with her. Then I listed what I suspected. 1. Her perfect 4.0 GPA wasn't as perfect as she claimed. Dusra, the community service hours on her transcript were inflated at best, fabricated at worst. Mundram, she wasn't just rejected from NYU, she was probably rejected everywhere. But suspicions weren't enough. I needed proof. Cold, hard evidence that would make what she did to me look like a minor prank by comparison. I texted Jessica, "Need to talk." "Important. My house tomorrow after school?" Jessica arrived the next day, clutching her backpack like a shield. "I shouldn't be here. If Brianna finds out I told you..." "She won't," I promised, pulling her inside. "But I need to know everything, Jess. Everything she's said, everything she's done." Jessica's shoulders slumped. "It's worse than I thought, Alex. Way worse." For the next 2 hours, Jessica unloaded. How Brianna had been cheating her way through AP classes since sophomore year. How she'd paid some college kid to write her admission essays. How she'd made up entire volunteer organizations for her applications. "The worst part is the NHS hours," Jessica whispered, referring to National Honor Society. "She's logged over 200 hours at that literacy program for underprivileged kids, but she's never actually gone. She convinced Mr. Porter to sign off on her hours because her dad donated that smartboard to his classroom." My mind flashed to all those Saturdays I'd spent walking shelter dogs while Brianna claimed she was too busy teaching kids to read, to hang out. "You're sure about this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Jessica nodded miserably. She bragged about it, said the system was rigged anyway, so why not rig it in her favor? And the NYU acceptance? Total lie. She got waitlisted everywhere because her SAT scores were garbage. But she couldn't stand the thought of you getting into Columbia while she... Jessica trailed off. While she what? While she had to settle for less. Those were her exact words, Alex. "I'm not going to watch Alexis live my dream life while I have to settle for less." Something dark and satisfied unfurled in my chest. "One more question. The photos of her volunteering at the literacy center that she posted on Instagram, where did those come from?" Jessica couldn't meet my eyes. "She goes once a year for the photo op. One day, dozens of pictures in different outfits. She schedules them to post throughout the year." I almost admired the dedication to the con. Almost. After Jessica left, I sat at my desk, staring at my Columbia rejection letter. The university was still reviewing my case, but even if they reversed their decision, I'd missed the early decision acceptance. I'd have to wait for regular admission with everyone else. All because Brianna couldn't stand to see me succeed. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Miss you already? Sleep over this weekend? We can start planning our community college outfits, LOL." The casual cruelty took my breath away. She really thought we'd just continue on like nothing had happened, that I'd accept my downgraded future without question. But here's the thing about growing up with a single mom who worked 2 jobs to keep you in a good school district. You learn that nothing in life is handed to you. You learn to fight for what matters. And Columbia mattered. I texted back, "Can't wait. I'll bring face masks." Then I turned back to my laptop and pulled up the school's anonymous ethics reporting system. Principal Matthews had implemented it last year after a cheating scandal in the physics department. Any student could report violations of academic integrity without fear of retaliation. My cursor hovered over the Submit button. This wasn't just about getting into Columbia anymore. This was about justice, about consequences. About showing Brianna that actions have repercussions beyond what her daddy's money could fix. But I didn't click. Not yet. A basic ethics complaint wouldn't be enough. Brianna had methodically dismantled my future with surgical precision. My response needed to be equally calculated. I closed the ethics portal and instead opened my email. "Dear Miss Winters," I began typing. "I need your help. Revenge, I was discovering, isn't a dish best served cold. It's a meal that requires careful preparation, the right ingredients, and perfect timing. And I was just preheating the oven. Ms. Winters agreed to meet me the next morning before first period. I'd always liked her. She taught AP literature with this infectious passion that made even Hemingway seem interesting, but now I needed her for more than literary analysis. I arrived at her classroom at 7:15, clutching a paper cup of coffee like a lifeline. Sleep had become a distant memory since discovering Brianna's betrayal. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her smirking face as she typed that email, sentencing my future to mediocrity with each keystroke. "Alexis, Ms. Winters said, looking up from her desk. "Come in." I closed the door behind me and took a deep breath. "Thank you for meeting me. I know it's early. After what happened with your recommendation letter, I'd have met you at midnight in the parking lot if you'd asked." She gestured to the chair beside her desk. "Columbia's admissions office contacted me yesterday. They're taking the situation very seriously." "That's good," I said, though good felt inadequate. What would be genuinely good is if the last week had never happened. "But I'm not here about Columbia. Not directly, anyway." "Ms. Winters raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening. I need to understand how someone could access your email. For the investigation. It wasn't a complete lie, just not the complete truth either." Ms. Winters sighed. "The IT department already explained it. I made a stupid mistake. I logged into my email on a library computer during lunch duty and apparently didn't log out properly. The system is supposed to automatically log out after inactivity, but..." She trailed off, guilt etched across her face. "It's not your fault," I assured her, though part of me wanted someone else to blame besides Brianna. "Do you remember which computer it was?" She pointed to a crude map of the library on her desk, where the IT department had marked a computer in the back corner. "Number 14. It's in the research section, partially hidden by the biography shelves. Not many students use it. Perfect placement for someone who didn't want to be observed." "One more thing," I said carefully. "The school tracks library computer usage, right? Like who logs in when..." Ms. Winters nodded. "All students use their school IDs to log in. It's how the administration monitors for inappropriate internet use." Which meant there was a digital record of Brianna logging into computer number 14 right before my recommendation was torpedoed. Physical proof that would be much harder to deny than grainy security footage. "Thank you," I said, standing up. "This helps more than you know." "Alexis, Ms. Winters called as I reached the door. "What are you planning to do?" I turned, offering my most innocent smile. "Just helping Columbia get to the truth." Ms. Winters didn't look convinced, but she didn't stop me either. By third period, I had a free block, the same time Brianna had AP statistics. Perfect. I headed to the library and found a table with a clear view of computer number 14, then pretended to read The Great Gatsby. While I waited, I didn't have to wait long. Principal Matthews entered with Mrs. Carlyle, the head librarian, both looking serious as they approached the computer. Mrs. Carlyle typed something, then pointed at the screen. Principal Matthews' brow furrowed as he leaned closer. They were checking the login records. My heart pounded against my ribs. Part of me wanted to abandon my elaborate revenge plan and just let the school's investigation run its course. Brianna would be caught, punished, and I'd be vindicated. Case closed. But then I remembered her text about community college outfits, and the hungry look in her eyes when she asked if I'd told my mom about Columbia yet. Administrative punishment wouldn't be enough. Brianna needed to experience the same public humiliation she'd planned for me. She needed to watch her carefully crafted image crumble in front of everyone who mattered to her. I spent lunch period in the newspaper office, where I'd worked as a features editor since junior year. The room was empty. Most of the staff ate in the cafeteria, giving me free rein of the archives and databases. First, I pulled up every article mentioning Brianna over the last 4 years. Volleyball team, second string, though she claimed to be a starter. Debate club, secretary, not vice president as her Instagram bio stated, and countless honor roll mentions. Then I accessed the yearbook committee's photo database. Being friends with the editor-in-chief had its perks, like knowing the password was Yearbook 2023. Pathetically easy. I scrolled through hundreds of photos until I found what I needed, shots of the National Honor Society's literacy program in action. 26 events over 2 years, and Brianna appeared in exactly 3 photos, always in the background, always on her phone, never actually working with any children. Next stop, the school's volunteer hour verification system. Each NHS member logged their hours online, which were then confirmed by supervisors through a unique code. As features editor, I'd written an article about the new system last year, so I knew it retained all data, including original submissions, revisions, and approvals. Brianna's volunteer log was a masterpiece of fiction. 217 hours at the Literacy Center, all approved by Mr. Porter, the NHS faculty advisor. But the approval timestamps told their own story. All of her hours had been approved in bulk, 3 separate occasions where dozens of hours were verified simultaneously. Real volunteer hours were typically approved weekly. By the end of my free period, I had a folder labeled Receipts, filled with screenshots, photos, and timestamps, evidence of a pattern of deception stretching back years. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed something irrefutable. Something even Brianna's rich daddy couldn't explain away. The answer came during AP Bio, as I was half listening to a lecture on genetic modification. My phone vibrated with a school-wide email from Principal Matthews. Attention seniors, a reminder that all required documentation for graduation, including verified volunteer hours and final transcripts, must be submitted no later than May 15th. Any discrepancies or missing information could affect your graduation status and final transcripts sent to universities. Graduation. Transcripts. Universities. Brianna hadn't just lied about her activities, she'd built her entire academic identity on fabrications. And those fabrications were about to be scrutinized by every college that had waitlisted her. But I couldn't just anonymously report her. That would be too clean, too impersonal. I needed her to know it was me. I needed her to feel the same slow-motion collapse I'd experienced reading that Columbia rejection. After school, I drove to the one place I knew could clear my head, Oak Ridge Cemetery. My dad's grave was in the newer section, under a maple tree that turned brilliant red every fall. I hadn't visited since the rejection. It felt too much like failure. "Hey, Dad," I said, settling onto the grass beside his headstone. "Sorry it's been a while." The cemetery was quiet except for distant traffic and birds in the maple branches. I traced the engraved letters of his name as I told him everything. The rejection, Brianna's betrayal, my growing obsession with revenge. "I know what you'd say," I continued, picking at the grass. "You'd tell me to take the high road, to focus on fixing my own situation and let karma handle Brianna." A light breeze rustled the maple leaves. "But here's the thing, Dad. I think I am karma in this situation. I think I'm supposed to be the consequence she never thought she'd face." I sat there until the sun began to set, letting the quiet seep into my bones. By the time I stood to leave, my path forward was crystal clear. Not just what I would do, but how, and more importantly, why. Revenge wasn't just about making Brianna suffer. It was about restoring balance, about ensuring that her actions carried the same weight they would for anyone else, about making sure the person who walked across the graduation stage in her designer heels was the real Brianna Peterson, not the fiction she'd created. The next morning, I texted her, "Sleepover still on for Friday?" "I have so much to tell you." Her response was immediate. "Oh my God, yes! Mom's making your favorite cookies." "What's the tea?" I smiled at my phone. "Just some interesting developments with Columbia. And I might have met someone." "Shut up! You've been holding out on me. Details Friday or I'll never forgive you." Oh, the irony. Friday couldn't come fast enough. I spent the week gathering the final pieces of my plan, careful to maintain the facade of ignorant best friend. We ate lunch together, partnered in chemistry lab, and exchanged our usual stream of memes and TikToks. On the surface, nothing had changed. But everything had. Every time she complained about teachers who just didn't get her, I mentally added it to her tab. Every time she casually mentioned how she basically ran the literacy program, I saved it for later. Every time she lied, to me, to others, to herself, I cataloged it with clinical precision. By Friday morning, my revenge blueprint was complete. 3 phases, each building on the last, designed to dismantle Brianna's house of cards with surgical precision. Phase 1, confirmation. Make Brianna admit what she did on record. Phase 2, collection. Gather irrefutable evidence of her academic fraud. Phase 3, consequences. Ensure that evidence reaches everyone who needs to see it, exactly when they need to see it. As I packed my overnight bag for the sleepover, I slipped in a small voice recorder, a relic from when Dad used to dictate patient notes at home. Old technology, but reliable. Undetectable. Perfect. My phone buzzed with a final text from Brianna. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Prepare for ultimate bestie time." I typed back, "Same. It's going to be a night to remember." That, at least, wasn't a lie. Brianna's house was exactly how I remembered it, sprawling suburban perfection with just enough tasteful decor to scream, "We have money, but we're not tacky about it." Her mom greeted me at the door with a warm hug that made my stomach twist. Mrs. Peterson had always been kind to me. She didn't know her daughter was a sociopath. "Alexis, it's been too long. Brianna's been moping around saying you're too busy for her these days." The irony was thick enough to choke on. I'd been too busy, processing how her daughter had napalmed my future. "Senior year is crazy," I said, forcing a smile. "But I wouldn't miss our sleepover tradition." Brianna bounded down the stairs in matching pajamas, at 6 p.m. because of course, and squealed like we were reuniting after years apart instead of having shared lunch 4 hours earlier. "Finally! No distractions, no school drama, just us." She linked her arm through mine. "Mom made your favorite cookies and Dad said we could use his credit card to order whatever we want for dinner." I let her drag me upstairs, hyper-aware of the voice recorder nestled in the side pocket of my overnight bag. 7 years of friendship had taught me Brianna's patterns. Feed her ego, then offer a small vulnerability, and she'd always try to one-up it with a bigger revelation. It was her most predictable trait, the pathological need to be more interesting, more dramatic, more everything. Her bedroom looked like an Instagram flat lay come to life. String lights, perfectly arranged photos, a vision board prominently featuring NYU's logo. The fakeness of it all made my skin crawl. "So," she flopped onto her bed, patting the space beside her, "tell me everything about this Columbia development. And don't skip the mystery guy details." I settled beside her, carefully positioning my bag within recording range. "Actually, I had a really weird meeting with my college counselor first. Can we start there?" She pouted but nodded. "Fine, but then boy talk." Mr. Hannigan showed me this bizarre email that supposedly came from Ms. Winters. Someone hacked her account and sent this horrible message trashing me to Columbia. I watched Brianna's face carefully. They said I cheated and plagiarized. It's probably why I got rejected. Her expression flickered. Surprise, then something like fear, quickly masked with exaggerated outrage. "What? That's insane. Who would do something so cruel?" "I have no idea," I lied, "but the school's investigating. They have footage from the library computers or something." Brianna's fingers twitched against her comforter. "Footage? Like security camera footage?" "Apparently, they're taking it super seriously." I leaned closer, lowering my voice. "Columbia might actually reconsider my application once they know the truth." "They can do that?" Her voice rose an octave. "Mr. Hannigan says it's happened before when there's clear evidence of sabotage." I shrugged. "Honestly, I feel bad for whoever did it. They're going to be so screwed when they get caught." The color drained from her face. "But it's just high school stuff. They wouldn't like press charges or anything, right?" And there it was. Not a full confession, but close enough. "I don't know." Mr. Hannigan mentioned something about criminal interference with federal educational institutions since Columbia receives government funding. Another lie, but one that landed perfectly. Brianna hugged a pillow to her chest. "That seems extreme." "It was probably just someone who was jealous. Everyone knew you were getting in." "Maybe," I said, reaching for my water bottle, deliberately knocking my bag so the recorder shifted for better audio. "But why would anyone be jealous enough to destroy my future like that?" Her eyes darted away. "People are competitive about college. Maybe they wanted your spot." I let silence fill the room, the kind that makes guilty people nervous. "It's just," Brianna finally said, her voice small, "sometimes it feels like you have everything figured out, you know? Your grades, your activities, Columbia. And some of us are struggling just to get noticed by any decent school." I widened my eyes in manufactured surprise. "Wait, I thought you got into NYU? Your dream school?" Panic flashed across her face. "I did! I just meant before that, when I was waiting to hear back? But you posted your acceptance in December." "That was months ago." "Right, yeah. December." She twisted her friendship bracelet, the one we'd made in 9th grade, around her wrist. "I'm just saying I understand why someone might snap under all that pressure." I nodded slowly. "So you think whoever sent that email just snapped? Maybe they felt like they had no other choice," she whispered, not meeting my eyes. "There's always a choice, Brianna." She flinched at my tone, finally looking up. Something in my expression must have alarmed her because she quickly changed the subject. "Anyway, tell me about this guy. Is he from Columbia? Is that the development?" I allowed the deflection. I'd gotten what I needed, not a full confession, but enough to establish motive and implied admission. Phase 1, complete. "Oh, he's nobody," I said, waving dismissively. Just some guy from the shelter where I volunteer. He's helping me with this big literacy project. Brianna visibly relaxed, back in familiar territory. Cute animal shelter volunteer boy? That's so on brand for you. It's actually for that literacy program you're always talking about. He's one of the coordinators? Ryan Coleman? Her face froze in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Ryan? I don't think I know him. Really? He said he's been running the weekend program for like 3 years. Said something about never missing a Saturday. I examined my nails casually. Weird that you haven't crossed paths. It's a big program, she said quickly. Lots of volunteers. That's what I love about you, Bree. So humble about your community service. 200 hours is seriously impressive. She preened at the compliment, oblivious to the trap. It's nothing, really. I just care about giving back. Totally. Ryan showed me the attendance logs when I signed up. Your name was on like every weekend. The blood drained from her face for the second time that night. He showed you the logs? Just a glimpse. I think he was trying to impress me with how organized they are. Each volunteer has to sign in and out, and there's this verification code system. Super thorough. Right. She swallowed hard. Hey, should we order dinner? I'm starving. Phase 2 was progressing nicely. Brianna was rattled, defensive, and, most importantly, unaware that I was systematically dismantling her lies. Over pizza and bad reality TV, I continued my assault, each casual question designed to make her squirm. By midnight, she was a nervous wreck, checking her phone constantly and suggesting we go to sleep unusually early. Actually, I said, there's something I wanted to ask your advice about. She looked wary. What's up? I've been thinking about applying to some more schools since Columbia might not work out. How's NYU's application process? Any tips? She shifted uncomfortably. It's pretty standard. Essays, transcripts, the usual. But I think their deadline passed. That's what I thought too. But when I checked their website, they have this special admission consideration for students with exceptional circumstances. Like, I don't know, having your recommendation sabotaged? I smiled innocently. I'm thinking of applying. You shouldn't, she blurted. Why not? Because, she fumbled, because you'd hate New York. The crowds, the noise. It's not your scene. I tilted my head. But it's yours? Definitely. I've always been a city girl. That's funny because you had a full meltdown when we went to Chicago junior year. Said you couldn't handle all these people in your personal space and begged to go home early. She looked like a cornered animal. People change. They sure do. I stood up, stretching. I'm going to use the bathroom. Be right back. In the hallway bathroom, I sent a pre-drafted email to Ryan Coleman, the actual literacy program coordinator I'd met that week. He'd been horrified to learn someone was falsifying volunteer hours and had promised to send me the official attendance records for the past 2 years. Records that would show Brianna had attended exactly 3 sessions, all conveniently on days when the program took promotional photos. When I returned, Brianna was hunched over her phone, texting frantically. Everything okay? I asked. She jumped. Fine, just checking something for debate club. Another lie. Debate club meetings had ended for the semester 2 weeks ago, a fact I knew because, unlike Brianna, I actually attended. Cool. Hey, want to take a selfie for Instagram? For old time's sake? She brightened immediately, social media being her natural habitat. We posed with practiced smiles, and I posted it with the caption, Final senior year sleepover with my bestie. Some friendships last forever, others just teach you lessons. Brianna read it over my shoulder and frowned. What does that mean? Just something my dad used to say. About how every relationship serves a purpose, even if it's just to show you what you don't want in your life. Her frown deepened. That's kind of dark. He was dying of cancer, Brie. Dark was his default setting. I locked my phone, but he also taught me that justice always comes for those who deserve it. Eventually, an uncomfortable silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken accusations. I think I'm ready for bed, Brianna finally said, her voice small. Me too. Big day tomorrow. What's tomorrow? I smiled, letting a hint of what I was feeling show through for the first time. Just another day where the truth gets a little closer to the surface. As we settled into our respective sleeping spots, Brianna in her queen bed, me on the trundle that had been my bed since middle school, I mentally reviewed my progress. Phase 1, complete. I had implied admission of guilt on recording. Phase 2, nearly complete. Just needed Ryan's email confirmation of the attendance records. Phase 3, ready for implementation Monday morning. I stared at the glow-in-the-dark stars on Brianna's ceiling, stars we'd put up together in 8th grade while talking about our futures. Back then, I thought we'd be in each other's lives forever. Now I was counting down the hours until I could expose her for who she really was. "Brianna?" I whispered into the darkness. "Yeah?" She sounded half asleep. "Do you remember in 9th grade when Jamie Kolchak spread that rumor about you hooking up with Mr. Baxter?" She rolled over to face me, confused by the subject change. "Unfortunately." "Why? Remember how I tracked down who started it and got them to confess in front of everyone at lunch? How I stood up for you even though people were calling me a narc?" "Of course. You saved my reputation." "I did that because I thought that's what best friends do. They protect each other, even when it's hard." I let my words hang in the air. I still believe that, that the truth matters, that loyalty matters. In the faint glow from her nightlight, I saw her expression shift from confusion to dawning horror as she finally began to understand. "Alex ... Good night, Brianna. Sleep tight." I closed my eyes, listening to her breathing grow rapid and shallow across the room. Phase 3 would begin Monday morning, but the psychological warfare? That had already begun. And I was winning. I didn't sleep much that night. Hard to get comfortable when you're plotting someone's total social destruction. By morning, Brianna had recovered some of her composure, chattering about her summer plans while carefully avoiding any mention of college, NYU, or volunteer work. The elephant in the room was so massive we were practically suffocating. "You seem distracted," she said as I packed up my overnight bag, making sure the voice recorder was safely tucked inside. "Just thinking about Monday," I replied honestly. "What's Monday?" I zipped my bag closed. "The beginning of the end." She laughed nervously. "You're being weird today." "Am I?" I smiled. "Or am I finally being real?" The look of uncertainty on her face was almost worth everything she'd put me through. Almost. I spent the weekend finalizing Phase 3. Ryan Coleman's email arrived Saturday afternoon with a detailed spreadsheet of literacy program attendance for the past 3 years. As expected, Brianna's name appeared exactly 3 times, all photo op days. The rest of her 214 volunteer hours were pure fiction. Sunday night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with scenarios, contingency plans, potential fallout. What I was about to do wasn't just petty high school drama. It would have real consequences for Brianna's future. "Good," whispered the cold, calculating voice that had taken up residence in my head since discovering her betrayal. "She deserves it." Monday morning arrived with the kind of perfect spring weather that usually lifted my spirits. Today, it just felt like appropriate backdrop lighting for the drama about to unfold. I dressed with care, not too polished, nothing that would make me look like I was trying too hard. Just another Monday, except it wasn't. I got to school early and headed straight for Principal Matthews' office. His secretary, Mrs. Finch, looked up in surprise. "Alexis, the principal isn't in yet." "That's okay," I said, sliding an envelope across her desk. "Could you make sure he gets this? It's important." "What is it?" "Evidence related to the investigation about my Columbia recommendation. Not a lie, just not the whole truth. There's a USB drive inside with some relevant files. Those relevant files included the recording from Friday night, Ryan's attendance records, and screenshots of Brianna's falsified volunteer logs, all meticulously organized and labeled." Mrs. Finch nodded, tucking the envelope into Principal Matthews's inbox. "I'll make sure he sees it first thing." "Thank you. When he reviews it, could you tell him I think the National Honor Society faculty advisor should be present? And possibly the school board representative for academic integrity?" Her eyebrows shot up. "This sounds serious." "It is." I shouldered my backpack. "One more thing. There's a student assembly this Friday, right?" "Yes, the pre-graduation awards ceremony." "Perfect." The entire senior class would be there to witness Brianna's fall from grace, just as she'd planned to witness mine when Columbia rejected me. "Great. Thanks again." Phase 3 was officially in motion. I arrived at first period just as Brianna was settling into her seat. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair hastily pulled into a messy bun. The weekend had clearly been rough on her conscience. "Good. Hey," she whispered as I slid into the desk beside her. "Can we talk at lunch? About Friday night?" "Absolutely," I said, my tone friendly. "I have something to show you anyway." Relief flooded her face. She probably thought I was willing to negotiate, to keep her secrets in exchange for, what? An apology? My Columbia dream was already delayed if not destroyed. There was no universe where we walked away from this as friends. But she didn't need to know that yet. Morning classes crawled by. During third period, my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. "This is Principal Matthews. Please come to my office during fourth period. Showtime." I texted back confirmation, then forwarded the message to Brianna with my own addition. "Just got called to principal's office. They know everything. Not sure what to do." Her response was immediate. "What do you mean everything? What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet. But they have evidence about the email. About Columbia. Don't go. Say you're sick. Please, Alex." I left her on red, let her squirm. Fourth period arrived. I walked to the principal's office with deliberate calm, nodding at classmates like it was any other day. Inside, I found Principal Matthews, Ms. Winters, Mr. Hannigan, and Mrs. Prescott, the school board representative for academic integrity. Principal Matthews gestured to an empty chair. "Alexis, thank you for coming. And thank you for the materials you provided this morning. They've raised some significant concerns." I nodded solemnly. "I know. I struggled with whether to bring this forward." Ms. Winters leaned forward. What changed?" "I realized it wasn't just about me and Columbia anymore. It's about academic integrity for everyone." I gestured to the USB drive on the principal's desk. "The falsified volunteer hours, the cheating, it affects every honest student who did the work." Principal Matthews nodded gravely. "We've reviewed the recording and the literacy program records. The discrepancies are concerning, to say the least." "There's more," I said quietly. "If you check the school's computer logs from 6th period 2 Thursdays ago, you'll find Brianna logged into library computer number 14, the same computer used to access Ms. Winter's email account." Mrs. Prescott made a note. "We'll verify that immediately. We've also reached out to Columbia's admissions office," Mr. Hannigan added. "They're reviewing your application with the new information and should have a decision by the end of the week." My heart leapt. A second chance at Columbia was more than I'd dared hope for when this all started. "What happens to Brianna?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Principal Matthews sighed heavily. "Academic dishonesty of this magnitude requires serious consequences. Falsifying community service hours, cheating, interfering with another student's college applications, these are expellable offenses." Would she still graduate? That's not clear yet. The school board will need to review the complete evidence. At minimum, she would lose her National Honor Society status, and we would be required to send updated information to any colleges that have accepted her, which meant her NYU fantasy would crumble, if she'd even been accepted anywhere at all. I understand. I gathered my backpack, feeling strangely hollow. This was what I wanted. Justice, consequences, revenge, but it didn't bring the satisfaction I'd expected. "Will you need me to make a formal statement?" "Most likely," Mrs. Prescott said. "But the recording is quite damning on its own." I nodded and stood to leave. "Alexis," Principal Matthews called as I reached the door. This took courage. Standing up for academic integrity isn't easy when it involves a friend. "Friend?" The word echoed hollowly in my chest. "Some friendships last forever," I said, echoing my Instagram caption. "Others just teach you lessons." As I closed the door behind me, my phone buzzed with 17 new text messages, all from Brianna, each more desperate than the last. The final one simply read, "I'm sorry. Please don't do this." Too late. The wheels of justice were already in motion, and lunch period, when I would face Brianna directly, was just 30 minutes away. I walked through the halls feeling strangely detached, like I was floating above my own body. Students parted around me, laughing and complaining about assignments, completely unaware that I'd just set off a bomb that would reshape our senior year finale. My phone kept vibrating with Brianna's increasingly frantic texts. "Alex, please talk to me. I can explain everything. It was a mistake. I was desperate. My parents will kill me. Please respond." I silenced my phone and headed to the cafeteria. Brianna was already there, sitting alone at our usual table, leg bouncing anxiously beneath it. When she spotted me, her face crumpled with relief. "Oh my God, finally," she said as I sat down across from her. "What happened? What did they say? How bad is it?" I studied her face, this person I'd trusted with every secret, every insecurity, every dream for 7 years. The face of someone who had calculated exactly how to hurt me most effectively and executed it without hesitation. "They know everything," I said flatly. "The email to Columbia. The fake volunteer hours. All of it." Her eyes widened, darting around the cafeteria to see if anyone was watching us. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. I unzipped my backpack and pulled out a printout of Ryan Coleman's spreadsheet, sliding it across the table. 214 fabricated volunteer hours. 3 actual appearances, all on photo days. She glanced at the spreadsheet, then shoved it back toward me. Put that away! Someone might see. That's what you're worried about? Being seen? What do you expect me to say, Alex? That I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry. For which part? Torpedoing my Columbia application? Lying about NYU? Making up an entire community service career? Her face hardened. You don't understand what it's like. Everything comes so easily to you. Grades, extracurriculars, Columbia. Your whole future perfectly planned. Easy? I almost choked on the word. My dad died, Brianna. I worked 2 part-time jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I gave up sleep, social life, everything for Columbia. And you think that was easy? At least you had a clear path. I've been drowning for years trying to keep up with expectations. My parents, the school, the damn college counselors, everyone demanding perfection. So you decided to drag me down with you. The unfairness of it still took my breath away. You could have asked for help. I would have helped you. And been your charity case? No thanks. I leaned back, suddenly exhausted. You know what's going to happen now, right? The school board has to notify every college you applied to about the fabricated volunteer hours. Your National Honor Society membership is gone. And the email to Columbia? That crosses into criminal territory. The color drained from her face. Criminal? They can't. They can. Electronic tampering, fraud, interference with federal educational institutions. Mr. Hannigan explained it all. My parents will get a lawyer, she said, but her voice wavered. Good. You'll need one. People at nearby tables were starting to notice our intense conversation. Jessica, from a few tables over, was watching us with concerned eyes. Brianna followed my gaze, and her expression shifted from fear to calculation. You know I'll tell everyone it was you, right? That you made this all up because you were jealous about NYU. The laugh that escaped me was genuine. Go ahead. I have the receipts, remember? Including a recording of you practically confessing at the sleepover. Her jaw dropped. You recorded me? That's illegal. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to recording a conversation. I consented. Thank you, Dad, for all those medical ethics discussions around the dinner table. But by all means, tell everyone your version. It'll make the assembly on Friday even more interesting. What's happening Friday? The pre-graduation awards ceremony. When they announce National Honor Society distinctions and special recognitions, I smiled thinly. Principal Matthews mentioned the school board would have made their decision by then. Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed by pure panic. They wouldn't announce something like this publicly. They can't humiliate me in front of everyone. Like you were planning to humiliate me when Columbia rejected me? When you were going to watch me tell my mom I'd failed to fulfill my dead father's dream? Tears filled her eyes. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I didn't think. That's the problem. You never do. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Around us, students gathered their things, oblivious to the destruction unfolding at our table. Is there anything I can do? She whispered. To make this go away? For a split second, I considered it. Telling her there was a way out, that I could withdraw the evidence, that we could go back to pretending. It would be so much easier than watching this play out. But then I remembered the crushing weight in my chest when I read that Columbia rejection. The way my future had collapsed in an instant because of her selfishness. No, I said, standing up. Some things can't be undone, Brianna. You taught me that. As I walked away, Jessica intercepted me at the cafeteria door. What was that about? Brianna looks like she's about to have a breakdown. Long story, but you might want to find a different lab partner for Kemi. That bad, huh? Worse. I glanced back at Brianna, still frozen at our table, staring at nothing. She sabotaged my Columbia application. Sent a fake email from Miss Winters saying I cheated. Jessica's eyes widened. Holy shit. I knew she was upset about NYU, but that's psychotic. NYU was a lie too. She didn't get in anywhere. But she showed me her acceptance letter. Photoshopped. Just like her volunteer hours. I adjusted my backpack strap. It's all falling apart now. Jessica looked back at Brianna with new eyes. Damn. You really exposed her. She exposed herself. I just provided the spotlight. By 7th period, the whispers had started. Brianna didn't show up for AP Literature, and Ms. Winters' tight expression told me the administration was already moving on the evidence I'd provided. During class change, I overheard snippets of conversation. Something about fake community service. Principal Matthews called her parents. Might not graduate. The rumor mill was grinding into motion, each retelling more dramatic than the last. By tomorrow, everyone would know some version of what had happened. By Friday, the truth would be inescapable. I should have felt triumphant. This was exactly what I'd wanted. Public humiliation for Brianna, justice for myself, consequences for her actions. Instead, I felt hollow, like I'd carved out something essential inside me along with my desire for revenge. After school, I checked my phone to find a single text from Brianna. "They're suspending me pending investigation. Hope you're happy." I wasn't happy, but I wasn't sorry either. When I got home, my mom was waiting with an unusual expression, part concern, part pride. "Principal Matthews called," she said, "about Columbia and everything else." I dropped my backpack by the door. "Am I in trouble? For standing up against academic dishonesty?" "No," she patted the couch beside her. "But he's worried about you, about how this will affect your relationship with Brianna." That relationship was over the moment she decided to sabotage my future. Mom nodded slowly. "I understand that. But revenge can be complicated. It changes you." "I'm not the one who changed," I insisted. "I just exposed the truth." "The truth could have been handled privately, through proper channels. You chose to make it public. That was a choice." I hadn't expected my own mother to question my methods. "Whose side are you on?" "Yours. Always yours." She squeezed my hand. "I'm just making sure you understand what you've set in motion. The Petersons are already threatening legal action, not against the school, against you personally, for defamation." My stomach dropped, but everything I provided was true. You can't defame someone with facts. Facts can be interpreted different ways, and they have money for very good lawyers. The cold reality of adult consequences for what I'd viewed as justified high school revenge began to sink in. What should I do? For now, nothing. The school has the evidence and Columbia is reconsidering your application. That was your goal. She gave me a searching look. Wasn't it? Was it? When had my goal shifted from fixing my own situation to destroying Brianna's? I couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, but somewhere along the way, justice had morphed into something darker. "I just wanted her to face consequences," I said finally. "Like anyone else would have to. And she will. But be prepared. Consequences have a way of spreading beyond their intended targets." That night, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up with texts from classmates wanting details, from Jessica providing updates on the rumors, from unknown numbers who'd somehow gotten my contact info and wanted to weigh in on the drama. The most disturbing message came just after midnight from Brianna. "My dad's pulling me out of school, sending me to boarding school to finish senior year. Congratulations. You've ruined everything." I stared at those words until they blurred together. This was what I wanted, wasn't it? Brianna removed, her lies exposed, my own path potentially restored. So why did victory taste so much like ash? The next morning, Brianna's empty desk in first period made everything real. Principal Matthews made an announcement during homeroom about maintaining academic integrity, without naming names, but everyone knew. The whispers followed me through the halls, a mix of admiration and wariness. "Did you hear what she did to Brianna? I can't believe she recorded their conversation. Ice cold, man. Wouldn't want to cross her. I'd become someone to fear rather than someone to befriend." The satisfaction I'd expected remained stubbornly out of reach, replaced by a growing sense that I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. At lunch, I sat alone. Jessica joined me briefly, then left when her other friends called her over. The isolation felt both deserved and unbearable. My phone buzzed with an email notification. From Columbia University. With trembling fingers, I opened it. "Dear Alexis Chen, we are writing regarding your application to Columbia University. After careful review of the additional information provided by your school administration, we have determined that the previous assessment of your application was based on falsified information. We would like to offer you admission to Columbia University's class of 2027. I stopped reading, tears blurring my vision. I'd done it. Columbia was offering me a place after all. My dad's dream, my dream, it was back within reach. So why didn't it feel like victory? Because the price had been too high. Not just for Brianna, whose future now lay in shambles, but for me, for who I'd become in pursuit of revenge. 2 tables away, Ryan Coleman, the literacy program coordinator who'd provided the volunteer records, caught my eye and nodded respectfully. He didn't know the full story, just that I'd exposed academic fraud. In his eyes, I was the hero. But heroes don't feel this hollow inside. As I walked to 5th period, I passed the guidance office. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of the Petersons, Brianna's parents, sitting stiffly across from Principal Matthews. Mrs. Peterson was crying. Mr. Peterson looked like he'd aged a decade overnight. Collateral damage. My mom had been right. I hurried past, but not before Mrs. Peterson spotted me. The look she gave me, not anger, but profound disappointment, hit harder than any insult could have. These were people who had welcomed me into their home for years, who had baked my favorite cookies and treated me like family. They didn't deserve this pain, even if Brianna deserved the consequences. By Thursday, Brianna's locker had been cleared out. The official story was that she'd transferred to a private academy to complete senior year. The unofficial story, the one everyone whispered about, was much closer to the truth. Chelsea Davis, our class gossip, cornered me before chemistry. Is it true the police are investigating Brianna for fraud? What? No. This is a school matter, not criminal. That's not what I heard. Katie's mom works in administration, and she said the school board is considering pressing charges. My stomach lurched. They can't do that. They totally can. Academic fraud is serious business. Chelsea seemed almost gleeful at the prospect. You'll be famous for exposing the biggest cheating scandal in school history. Famous. As if that's what I wanted. I escaped to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and tried to breathe through the panic. This wasn't supposed to go this far. Public humiliation, academic consequences, yes, but legal action? Criminal charges? I pulled out my phone and, before I could talk myself out of it, texted Principal Matthews. I heard rumors about legal action against Brianna. Please tell me that's not happening. His response came minutes later. The school isn't pressing charges, but the other affected institutions might have different policies. This is beyond our control now. Other affected institutions. The Literacy Center? NYU? Columbia? The magnitude of what I'd set in motion finally hit me full force. This wasn't just high school drama anymore. This was real life, with real-world consequences that could follow Brianna forever. Just like she was willing to let Columbia's rejection follow me forever, whispered the vindictive part of me that had started all this. But was that really true? Had she understood the full impact of what she was doing? Or had she, like me, been so focused on her immediate goal that she couldn't see the bigger picture? Friday morning arrived, the day of the pre-graduation assembly. The day when, I'd imagined, Brianna would face public reckoning in front of the entire senior class. Instead, she was gone. The spectacle I'd envisioned would never happen. But the damage was done regardless. I sat in the auditorium, surrounded by classmates buzzing with anticipation. Not for the awards or recognitions, but for the potential drama. Would Principal Matthews address the incident, as everyone had taken to calling it? Would they announce what happened to the National Honor Society hours that Brianna had falsified? As the assembly began and various teachers took the stage to present awards, I found myself hoping they would say nothing, that they would let the rumors die a natural death, that they would allow Brianna, wherever she was now, to start over without the shadow of public humiliation. But when Mrs. Prescott, the academic integrity representative, took the microphone, I knew my hope was in vain. Before we continue with our recognitions, she began, I want to address something that has affected our community this week. The auditorium fell silent. 300 seniors collectively held their breath, hungry for official confirmation of the rumors that had consumed our school all week. I wanted to disappear, to melt into my plastic chair. This wasn't supposed to feel like this. Academic integrity is the foundation of educational excellence, Mrs. Prescott continued. When that integrity is compromised, it affects every student who played by the rules. Every hour honestly worked, every assignment completed with personal effort, every achievement earned through legitimate means. She didn't need to name Brianna. Everyone knew. This week, our administration discovered significant violations of our academic honesty policy. These violations included falsification of community service records, misrepresentation of academic achievements, and interference with another student's college application process. Whispers erupted throughout the auditorium. Mrs. Prescott raised her hand for silence. The student involved is no longer attending Westlake High. However, I want to be absolutely clear. Such violations carry serious consequences beyond our campus. Colleges have been notified. The literacy program affected by the falsified volunteer hours is considering further action. And this will remain on the permanent record. Permanent record. Those two words hit me like a physical blow. Brianna wouldn't just lose NYU or her senior year at Westlake. This would follow her everywhere. College applications, job interviews, graduate school. The punishment suddenly seemed wildly disproportionate to the crime. On a more positive note, Mrs. Prescott's voice softened slightly. I want to recognize the student who brought this issue to light. Standing up for academic integrity isn't easy, especially when it involves peers. Alexis Chen demonstrated remarkable courage. No, I said, the word escaping before I could stop it. A few heads turned toward me. Mrs. Prescott faltered. Excuse me? I stood up, my legs trembling. Please don't. I don't want recognition for this. The entire auditorium was staring now. Principal Matthews, seated behind Mrs. Prescott, leaned forward with a concerned expression. I appreciate the sentiment, Alexis, Mrs. Prescott said carefully, but integrity should be acknowledged. This wasn't about integrity. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. It was about revenge. A shocked murmur rippled through the crowd. Jessica, sitting 2 rows ahead, turned to stare at me with wide eyes. Alexis, Principal Matthews said, standing up. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No. The word came out stronger this time. Everyone's been whispering about this all week. They deserve the truth. I took a deep breath. Yes, Brianna falsified her volunteer hours. Yes, she sent that email to Columbia. And yes, I exposed her. But not because I care about academic integrity. The auditorium was completely silent now, hundreds of eyes locked on me. I exposed her because she hurt me and I wanted to hurt her back. I didn't just report what happened, I deliberately orchestrated her public humiliation. I recorded our conversation without telling her. I timed everything so it would explode right before graduation. My voice cracked. I wanted to destroy her future like she tried to destroy mine. Principal Matthews was making his way toward me now, clearly trying to end this unexpected confession. The point is, I hurried, don't celebrate what I did. Don't call it courage. It was calculated revenge, and I'm not proud of it. Principal Matthews reached my row and gestured for me to follow him out. I nodded, relieved to escape the hundreds of staring eyes. As we walked up the aisle toward the exit, I felt lighter somehow, like I'd put down a crushing weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. In the hallway, Principal Matthews didn't look angry, just tired and a little sad. That was quite a statement, Alexis. I'm sorry for disrupting the assembly. I just couldn't sit there and be praised for what I did. He studied me for a long moment. Your actions this week have put the administration in a difficult position. On one hand, you exposed genuine academic misconduct that needed addressing. On the other hand, your methods and motivations were problematic. I know. Columbia contacted me this morning. They've officially accepted you for the fall semester. My heart leapt despite everything. Really? Yes. But they also asked some pointed questions about how this situation was handled. About the recording specifically. My momentary elation deflated. Are they rescinding the offer? No. But they expressed concern about the character of a student who would go to such lengths for revenge. He sighed. I vouched for you, Alexis. I told them what you just told the entire senior class, that you recognize your actions were driven by hurt rather than principle. Tears pricked my eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. There are still consequences to face. The Petersons have requested a formal apology from you as a condition of not pursuing legal action. Legal action for what? Everything I exposed was true. The manner in which you exposed it is the issue. Recording without explicit consent, public humiliation, potential defamation, regardless of whether the underlying facts were true. Their lawyer made quite a compelling case. I leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. So what happens now? You write that apology, not for exposing the truth, but for how you did it, for the damage that went beyond deserved consequences. He checked his watch. And you should probably prepare for your valedictorian speech next week. I blinked in surprise. I'm still valedictorian? Your academic record stands on its own merits, Alexis. But I expect your speech to reflect the lessons learned from this experience. His expression softened slightly. Sometimes the hardest person to hold accountable is yourself. Back in the auditorium, the assembly continued without me. I sat in the empty hallway, Principal Matthews' words echoing in my head. The hardest person to hold accountable is yourself. I pulled out my phone and, after staring at the screen for several minutes, opened my text conversation with Brianna. Her last message still sat there, accusatory. Congratulations. You've ruined everything. I started typing, deleted it, started again. I'm not sorry for exposing what you did, but I am sorry for how I did it. The recording, the public humiliation, it went too far. I wanted you to hurt like I hurt, but that wasn't right. We both made terrible choices that will follow us. Maybe that's our real lesson from senior year. I hit send before I could overthink it. I didn't expect a response. Didn't know if I even deserved one. To my surprise, the typing indicator appeared almost immediately. Boarding school sucks. Dad's making me start therapy. They're talking about a gap year now since all my college options are gone. Everything is different and I hate it. A pause then. But I would have hated seeing your face every day at community college more. That's why I did it. Because I couldn't stand watching you succeed where I failed. The raw honesty knocked the wind out of me. We could have helped each other. I texted back. That's what real friends do. Were we ever real friends? The question hit like a slap. Had we been? Or had our friendship always been built on competition, comparison, keeping score? I thought we were. I replied finally. Maybe neither of us knew how to be. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. For what it's worth, I am sorry about Columbia. I didn't think about what it meant to you, about your dad. I was just thinking about myself. That makes 2 of us. The bell rang, signaling the end of the assembly. Within seconds, the hallway would be flooded with students, all eager to dissect my unexpected confession. I have to go, I texted. But Brianna? I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for at boarding school. I mean that. I hope Columbia lives up to the dream. For your dad's sake. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even closure, really. But it was something, an acknowledgement that beneath all the revenge and betrayal and hurt, there was still some small recognition of the people we'd once been to each other. Students began pouring into the hallway. Jessica broke away from the crowd and rushed toward me. Holy shit, Alex! What was that in there? The truth, finally. The next week passed in a blur of graduation preparations, awkward conversations, and tentative steps toward whatever my new normal would be. I wrote the formal apology to the Petersons, taking full responsibility for the public nature of Brianna's exposure, while still acknowledging the reality of what she'd done. I finished my valedictorian speech, rewriting it entirely to reflect what I'd learned about victory, vengeance, and the thin line between justice and cruelty. Columbia sent my official acceptance package, complete with housing information and course registration details. My mom cried when it arrived, remembering how my dad had dreamed of this day. He would be proud, she said, hugging me tightly. Not just of Columbia. Of you learning from your mistakes. Would he? I nearly ruined someone's life for revenge. But you didn't. You stopped yourself. You took responsibility. That's the hardest thing to do. She pulled back to look at me. Your father made mistakes too, you know. Everyone does. It's what you do after that defines you. Graduation day arrived under perfect blue skies. As I prepared to take the stage for my speech, I caught a glimpse of the Petersons sitting near the back, without Brianna. Mrs. Peterson gave me a small, tight nod when our eyes met. Not forgiveness exactly, but acknowledgement. I nodded back. Standing at the podium, looking out at my classmates in their blue caps and gowns, I set aside my prepared speech and spoke from the heart. We've spent 4 years learning formulas, dates, literary devices, and scientific principles, but the most important lessons aren't in any textbook. They're the ones we learn about ourselves, often the hard way. I took a deep breath. This year, I learned that achieving your dreams means nothing if you compromise who you are to get there. That justice without compassion isn't justice at all. That sometimes winning feels exactly like losing. In the audience, Jessica gave me a thumbs up. My mom was crying again. As we leave Westlake behind, we'll all face moments where we have to choose what kind of people we want to be. Moments where the easy path and the right path diverge. I hope we all find the courage to choose better than I did this year. I gripped the edges of the podium. Because the colleges we attend, the careers we build, the accolades we collect, none of it matters if we lose ourselves along the way. After the ceremony, as we threw our caps into the air and embraced our families, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw your speech online. Boarding school streamed your graduation. Not bad, Chen. Maybe there's hope for both of us after all. I smiled despite everything. No signature needed. Some connections, even broken ones, leave marks that time can't erase. That night, I sat on my bedroom floor surrounded by Columbia brochures, acceptance letters, and my dad's old college sweatshirt. The future I'd fought so hard for was finally secure. The dream was intact, but I was different now. Changed in ways I was still discovering. She sabotaged my college apps. I exposed her cheating scandal to the whole school. We both lost something irreplaceable in the process. And maybe, just maybe, we both found something unexpected too. a harsh but necessary lesson about who we were and who we wanted to become. I folded my dad's sweatshirt carefully and placed it with my Columbia acceptance letter. His dream and mine fulfilled at last, but on my own terms now, with my eyes wide open. Some lessons cost more than others. Some scars never fully heal. But as I turned off my light and looked up at the stars through my bedroom window, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel again. Peace. Not because justice had been perfectly served, or because I'd won some cosmic battle, but because for the first time since discovering Brianna's betrayal, I recognized myself again. And that, more than Columbia or revenge or vindication, was the victory I actually needed. 3 months later, I stood in my Columbia dorm room, carefully arranging framed photos on my desk. My dad smiling on a hiking trail, my mom at my high school graduation, and tucked behind them, barely visible, a faded picture from 8th grade, Brianna and me with our science fair project, arms slung around each other's shoulders, unaware of the future that awaited us. Some people might find it strange that I kept that photo. A reminder of betrayal isn't exactly standard dorm room decor, but I needed it there, not as a monument to what happened, but as a reminder of what I'd learned. "Your room looks great," my roommate Zoe said, returning from the communal bathroom down the hall. We'd been matched through the housing portal and had spent the last week navigating the delicate dance of new roommate boundaries. Though I might be biased since my side looks like a tornado hit it. I laughed, gesturing to her explosion of clothes and books. "Organized chaos, you called it?" "Exactly. Method to the madness." She flopped onto her bed. "Ready for the mixer tonight?" Chance to meet the rest of the floor. The old me would have jumped at the opportunity, networking, forming connections, building the perfect college experience. But the new me hesitated. "Actually, I think I might skip it. Still have some unpacking to do." Zoe sat up, concerned. "Everything okay? You've been kind of reserved since you got here." Not what I expected from someone who was class valedictorian and apparently exposed some major scandal. Word had traveled, apparently. I shouldn't have been surprised. Between social media and the overlapping circles of incoming freshmen, my history with Brianna had followed me to New York like an unwelcome shadow. "Ah, you've heard about that." My roommate took down a cheater and won. "It's basically the plot of a Netflix series." She smiled, then grew serious. "Unless it's something you don't want to talk about?" I sat on my bed facing her. "It's complicated. The story people tell about what happened isn't the whole truth. Or at least it leaves out the most important parts." "Like what?" "Like how revenge doesn't feel the way you think it will. Like how being right and doing right aren't always the same thing." Zoe nodded slowly. "Deep. So what's holding you back from the mixer? Social anxiety? Fear of forming connections? Worry that everyone secretly knows your backstory? All of the above?" I admitted. "I don't know who I am here yet. At Westlake, especially after everything happened, I was Alexis who exposed the cheater. Before that, I was Alexis who's going to Columbia, or Alexis whose dad died. I've always been defined by something, and now you get to decide what defines you." Zoe said. "Scary freedom." "Exactly." She stood up and grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door, tossing it to me. "Which is precisely why you should come tonight. New people. Fresh start. No preconceived notions. Well, except mine, but I'm already a fan." I caught the jacket, hesitating. What if I make the same mistakes? Trust the wrong people? Become someone I don't recognize again? What if you don't? Zoe challenged. "Look, from what little I know about your scandal story, you learned from it. That's more than most people do with their epic screw-ups." I fingered the worn cuff of my jacket, thinking about Brianna. We hadn't communicated since that text after graduation. She was taking a gap year, according to Jessica, who still kept in sporadic contact with her, working at her dad's company while applying to smaller, less prestigious colleges that might overlook her tarnished record. The consequences had been real, but not as devastating as they might have been. Not the permanent exile I'd initially imagined when plotting my revenge. Life, I was learning, rarely dealt in absolutes. "Fine," I said, standing up. "But if someone asks about the cheating scandal, I'm using you as a human shield. Deal." Zoe grinned. "Though for what it's worth, most people are too self-absorbed to care about your high school drama. They're all too busy reinventing themselves, too." The mixer was held in the common room of our residence hall, awkward circles of freshmen clutching plastic cups of soda, trying desperately to seem cooler than they felt. I recognized the familiar choreography of new social connections forming, the careful questions, the strategic revelations, the tentative alignment of interests and backgrounds. I'd been playing this game since kindergarten, but now, post-Brianna, I found myself approaching it differently. When a guy from the third floor asked what I wanted to major in, I didn't launch into my perfectly rehearsed speech about pre-med and following my father's footsteps. Instead, I admitted, I'm not sure anymore. I came in thinking pre-med, but I'm questioning if that's really my passion or just a way to hold on to my dad. His eyebrows shot up at the unexpected honesty. Wow. I was just going to say poli-sci and move on. But that's refreshingly real. Sorry, I winced, still calibrating my social filter. No, it's good, he insisted. I'm Marcus, by the way. And for what it's worth, I'm only doing poli-sci because my parents expect me to take over the family law firm someday. Nice to meet a fellow parental expectation navigator, I said, raising my cup in mock toast. By the end of the night, I'd collected a small circle of potential friends, not just Marcus, but Nina from Boston, who loved novels I'd never heard of, and Dev, who was passionate about environmental engineering and had a contagious laugh. None of them asked about high school scandals. None of them seemed to care about my valedictorian status or Columbia legacy. They just wanted to know who I was now. Back in our room, Zoe was practically smug. See? Not so terrible. You were right, I admitted, kicking off my shoes. It was nice. Different. Different how? I thought about it as I changed into pajamas. In high school, especially with Brianna, I always felt like I was performing. Like our friendship was this constant competition neither of us acknowledged. Every conversation had subtext. Every achievement had to be measured against the other person's. Sounds exhausting. It was. I just didn't realize it until it was over. I climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling. Tonight was simpler. More authentic, maybe. College lets you shed your skin, Zoe said wisely. The trick is making sure you like what's underneath. That night, I dreamed about my dad. We were walking through Columbia's campus, but it was empty except for us. He kept pointing out buildings where he'd had classes, benches where he'd studied, the spot where he'd met my mom at a protest rally. I'm sorry, I told him in the dream. I almost ruined everything. Dream Dad smiled, the way he used to when I was overthinking a problem. You're here now. That's what matters. But I'm not the same person you knew, not the daughter you were proud of. Good, he said simply. You're supposed to change, to grow, to become more fully yourself. I woke up with tears on my cheeks and a notification on my phone. An email from Brianna, time-stamped 3:17 a.m. Alexis, this is weird, I know. We haven't talked in months. But I had a dream about us last night, about the science fair in 8th grade when our volcano actually worked, and we couldn't stop laughing about Mrs. Roberts' face when it erupted all over her clipboard. I'm not writing for forgiveness or to reopen old wounds. I just wanted you to know I'm doing okay. The gap year is actually good for me. I'm working in Dad's HR department, ironic considering my people skills, and applying to state schools for next fall. Nothing prestigious, but places that seem to care more about who I am now than who I was in high school. Therapy is helping too. Turns out I have some deep-seated insecurity issues. Shocking, I know, and maladaptive competitive tendencies. But the funny thing is, now that I'm not pretending to be perfect all the time, I actually like myself better. My therapist says that's growth. I call it exhaustion. Keeping up appearances was just too damn tiring. Anyway, I saw on Instagram that you're at Columbia now. Your dad would be really proud. I hope it's everything you wanted it to be. A Brianna P.S. Remember when we were 15 and swore we'd never turn into our parents? I think that's the only promise I've managed to keep so far. I read the email 3 times, a strange mix of emotions washing through me. Not forgiveness. We were well past the point where simple forgiveness could erase what happened. But something like recognition. Acknowledgement of our shared history and separate futures. I clicked reply before I could overthink it. Brianna, dreams are weird. Last night I dreamed about my dad showing me around Columbia. The night before it was about forgetting to study for a test in a class I never signed up for. Brains are strange that way. Columbia is not what I expected. Both better and harder. The classes are challenging, which I love. The people are interesting. My roommate is determined to make me less uptight, her words. But the best part is that no one here knows me as Alex who lost her dad or Alex who exposed the cheater. I'm just me. Figuring it out as I go. I'm glad therapy is helping. For what it's worth, I've been seeing someone too. Turns out exposing someone's academic fraud for revenge leaves some emotional wreckage to sort through. Who knew? I don't know if we'll ever be friends again. Probably not. Too much happened. But I'm glad you're finding your way forward. I think that's all any of us can really do. Alex P.S. We're definitely turning into our parents. I caught myself using my mom's disappointed but not angry voice on my roommate yesterday when she borrowed my sweater without asking. Terrifying. I hit send before I could second-guess myself, then got ready for my 9 a.m. philosophy class. As I packed my bag, I glanced at the photo of Brianna and me at the science fair, partially hidden behind my other frames. Some people might find it strange that I kept that photo. But maybe what it represented wasn't just betrayal and revenge. Maybe it also showed two imperfect people who had once mattered to each other, who still, in some complicated way, shaped each other's growth. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus about a study group forming for our shared Intro to Ethics class. The irony wasn't lost on me. Count me in, I texted back. Pretty sure I've got some relevant real-world experience to contribute. As I walked across campus to class, the fall leaves crunched beneath my feet. Columbia in autumn was exactly as beautiful as my dad had described it. But I wasn't here just for him anymore. I was here for me too, the me I was becoming, shaped by mistakes and victories alike. She sabotaged my college apps. I exposed her cheating scandal. We both lost and found ourselves in the aftermath. And somehow, against all odds, we were both going to be okay. Winter break came faster than I expected. My first semester at Columbia had been a whirlwind of classes, new friendships, and the gradual process of figuring out who I was beyond the girl who'd orchestrated an elaborate revenge scheme. The person I was becoming surprised me sometimes, more thoughtful, less driven by external validation, occasionally even spontaneous, much to Zoe's delight. "You're sure you don't want to come home with me for Christmas?" Zoe asked, stuffing an impossible amount of laundry into her suitcase. "My mom already considers you her second daughter, and we have a guest room that doesn't smell like dorm disinfectant." I smiled, touched by the offer. "Thanks, but I promised my mom I'd be home. First Christmas since everything happened, you know?" Zoe nodded understandingly. In the months we'd been roommates, I'd gradually shared more details about the Brianna situation. Not the sanitized version that had spread through campus gossip, but the messy, complicated truth, including the parts where I wasn't the hero. "Text me if you need an escape hatch," she said, giving me a quick hug before wheeling her suitcase toward the door. "And don't forget we're doing New Year's in the city. Marcus already booked the restaurant." Marcus. The name still gave me a little flutter. We'd started as study partners, evolved to friends, and recently crossed into something more. He was thoughtful and funny and didn't care about my past, just who I was becoming. My first relationship not built on competition or performance or shared history, just two people who liked who the other person was. The flight home felt like traveling back in time. Same airport, same drive through familiar neighborhoods, same house with the porch light always left on. But I wasn't the same person who'd left in August. My mom noticed immediately. "You seem lighter," she said as we carried my bags inside. "Lighter how?" "Less burdened." She studied my face. "Columbia agrees with you. I think it's less about Columbia and more about what happened before I got there," I admitted. I needed to learn some things the hard way. Later that night, curled up on the couch with hot chocolate, another Chen family tradition, my mom broached the subject I'd been avoiding. "Brianna's mother came into the hospital last week. Routine mammogram, nothing serious." My grip tightened on my mug. "Oh?" She asked about you. How you were doing at Columbia. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That you're thriving." Mom hesitated. She mentioned Brianna's applying to colleges again. State schools mainly, but also a small liberal arts college in Vermont. "Good for her," I said and meant it. She deserves a fresh start too. My mom seemed to relax, as if she'd been worried about my reaction. "The Petersons are moving after graduation. Mr. Peterson got offered a position in Chicago." A strange sadness washed over me. The Petersons moving meant closing a chapter completely. The house where I'd spent countless sleepovers, the kitchen where Mrs. Peterson taught us to make snickerdoodles, the backyard where we'd practiced volleyball, all of it would belong to strangers. "Change is the only constant," I murmured, something my philosophy professor loved to say. The next morning, I drove through town, reacquainting myself with the landmarks of my childhood. Without conscious decision, I found myself passing Brianna's house. Christmas lights outlined the roof and windows, the same pattern they'd used since we were kids. "Mr. Peterson was meticulous about holiday decorations. As I slowed, the front door opened, and Brianna herself stepped out, carrying a bag of trash to the side of the house. I should have driven on. That would have been the sensible thing to do. Instead, I found myself pulling to the curb and stepping out of the car. She spotted me immediately, freezing mid-step like a startled deer. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she set down the trash bag and walked slowly to the edge of her yard. "Alex," she said, her voice carrying in the cold air. "You're home. Winter break," I explained unnecessarily. "Right, us too." She gestured vaguely toward the house where another college student would be home on break, except she wasn't in college yet. We stood in awkward silence, our breath forming small clouds between us. "What do you say to the person who tried to destroy your future? Who you in turn exposed and humiliated? How's the gap year?" "Seemed inadequate." "I got into Bennington," she finally said. "Early decision for next fall." "Vermont, right?" "That's great, Brianna." "It's not Columbia," she said with a small smile, "but it feels right for me. Small classes, creative environment, fresh start. Sounds perfect." Another silence, less awkward this time. "Your mom mentioned your family's moving to Chicago," I said. "Dad's promotion. It's a good opportunity." She kicked at a small pile of snow. "Weird to think someone else will live in this house. That our rooms will belong to different people. The end of an era. Several eras." She met my eyes directly. "I've been thinking about what to do with all our old stuff. The friendship bracelets, the photo albums, those ridiculous time capsules we buried in the backyard. I'd almost forgotten about those. Shoeboxes filled with notes, trinkets, and predictions about our futures, buried with solemn ceremony at ages 10, 13, and 16. God, I haven't thought about those in forever," I admitted. "Didn't the last one have those horrible poems we wrote? And our college wish lists?" She grimaced, painfully ironic in retrospect. We both laughed, the sound startling in its normalcy. For just a moment, we were simply two people who shared a history, not adversaries carrying battle scars. "Do you want to dig them up?" she asked suddenly. "Before we move? You should have your half of everything." The offer caught me off guard. It was a peace offering, but also an acknowledgement of finality, the formal dissolution of whatever remnants of friendship still existed between us. "I'd like that," I said. "Not today, but maybe before I head back to New York?" She nodded. "Just text me when." As I turned to go, she called after me. "For what it's worth, Alex, I'm glad things worked out for you. Columbia, I mean. It's where you belong." "And Bennington is where you belong," I replied. "Sometimes the right path isn't the one we originally planned. Wisdom from Philosophy 101? Something like that." I smiled. "Merry Christmas, Brianna." "Merry Christmas, Alex." Driving away, I felt an unexpected sense of peace settle over me. We would never be friends again. Too much had happened, too many lines crossed on both sides. But perhaps we could be something else, witnesses to each other's growth. People who had once meant everything to each other, then brought out the worst in each other, and finally helped each other find their true paths, even if that help came through conflict and pain. 3 days later, we knelt in the cold earth of her backyard, unearthing 3 mud-stained shoeboxes. We didn't read the contents together, just divided them silently. Her half, my half of the shared past. Cornell or Columbia for Alex, NYU for me. She read from one yellowed paper, a sad smile playing on her lips. "We were so certain, weren't we? About everything. The beautiful arrogance of youth," I said, carefully folding my stack of mementos. As I drove back to my mom's house with my share of our excavated history, I realized that Brianna would always be part of my story. Not as the villain I'd made her out to be in my darkest moments, nor as the perfect friend I'd imagined before that. She was, like all of us, complicated and flawed and capable of both terrible mistakes and genuine growth. She sabotaged my college apps. I exposed her cheating scandal to the whole school. 2 actions that could have defined us forever, but they didn't. Because life keeps moving, and so do we. Sometimes apart, sometimes in parallel, but always forward into who we're becoming next. And that, I was learning, is the real revenge against the past. Living well in the present, with eyes wide open to the lessons that brought you here. 5 years later, I straightened my navy blazer, checking my reflection in the bathroom mirror one last time. Conference name badge, perfectly positioned. Hair, professional yet approachable. Expression, confident without seeming arrogant. The woman staring back at me looked far more put together than I felt, preparing to give my first ever presentation at a national medical ethics conference. Not exactly how I'd imagined spending the spring of my first year of medical school, but when your thesis on patient autonomy catches the attention of the American Medical Ethics Board, you don't say no to the invitation. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Knock 'em dead, doctor." Chen, almost. But not literally. That would be an ethical violation. I smiled, typing back a quick response before slipping my phone into my pocket. Marcus and I had managed to defy the odds of college relationships, surviving 4 years of occasional long-distance stretches, and now the demands of our respective graduate programs. Him at law school in Boston, me at medical school in New York. Not without bumps, but with something more durable than the fragile connections of my past. The hotel ballroom was already half full when I arrived, professionals in business attire networking over mediocre coffee. I scanned the room out of habit, mentally rehearsing my opening lines, when my eyes locked on a familiar profile at the registration table. Brianna. 5 years since high school graduation, 3 years since we'd last exchanged brief, carefully polite emails. Her hair was shorter now, styled in a professional bob that suited her. She wore a charcoal pantsuit and carried herself with a quiet confidence I didn't recognize from our shared past. My first instinct was to retreat, to find another entrance, to avoid the potential awkwardness. But the Alexis who had orchestrated an elaborate revenge plot in high school was not the same person preparing to speak about ethical decision-making in medicine today. So instead, I walked straight toward the registration table. She noticed me when I was about 10 feet away, her expression cycling rapidly through surprise, uncertainty, and finally settling on something like cautious warmth. Not quite a smile, but not a wince either. Progress. Recognition passed between us as I approached, that uniquely strange feeling of encountering someone who knew an earlier version of you, someone who witnessed both your worst moments and your evolution beyond them. The conference badge pinned to her lapel read, Brianna Peterson, Ethics Journalism Fellow, Vermont Center for Medical Humanities. The universe had a peculiar sense of humor, placing us both at the same medical ethics conference 5 years after our own ethical battle. Our exchange was brief, both of us hyper-aware of the professional setting. No dramatic reconciliation, no tearful apologies, just two adults acknowledging each other's presence with the weight of shared history between us. I learned she was covering the conference for a medical journal, having found her niche in science writing during her time at Bennington. She learned I was presenting on patient autonomy in end-of-life decisions, a topic inspired partly by my father's experience. What struck me most wasn't what we said, but what we didn't need to say. The desperate competition that had once defined our relationship was gone, replaced by something I couldn't quite name. Not friendship, that bridge had burned thoroughly, but mutual recognition of how far we'd both traveled from the people we once were. When I took the stage 30 minutes later, I spotted her in the audience, notebook in hand, listening intently as I discussed the ethical frameworks that guide medical decisions. The symbolism wasn't lost on me, speaking about ethics to a room that included the person who had once brought out my most unethical impulses. My presentation went well, despite the flutter of nerves that persisted. Questions were thoughtful, engagement was high, and afterward, several attendees approached with business cards and fellowship opportunities. Among them was Brianna, professional and composed, requesting a brief interview for her article. We found a quiet corner of the hotel lobby, away from the conference bustle. The conversation started stiffly, focused entirely on my research, but gradually shifted into something more personal as the formal questions ended. She mentioned her parents, now settled in Chicago. I shared updates about my mom's retirement. She described her small apartment in Burlington that overlooked Lake Champlain. I told her about my cramped medical student housing in Manhattan. Small talk layered over the massive, unspoken history between us. Eventually, the conversation reached what had always been its inevitable destination. Columbia, the sabotage, the exposure, the very genesis of our present selves. We didn't rehash the details. We both remembered them with painful clarity. Instead, we spoke about aftermath and growth, about how those explosive senior year events had shaped our trajectories in ways neither of us could have anticipated. She admitted that losing everything had ultimately freed her from expectations she'd been drowning under. I confessed that winning had taught me victory could be hollow without integrity to support it. We had both learned the same lesson from opposite sides of the experience, that who you become matters more than what you achieve. As our conversation wound down, she asked the question I'd been expecting all along, if I regretted exposing her. Not a challenge, just genuine curiosity. My answer surprised even me with its clarity. I didn't regret exposing the truth, but I regretted how thoroughly I'd embraced the role of avenger, how completely I'd allowed revenge to consume me. The exposure itself was necessary, the calculated humiliation was not. She nodded, understanding without needing elaboration, then offered her own reflection, that while the consequences had been devastating at the time, they had forced her to rebuild her self-concept from the ground up, to figure out who Brianna Peterson was when stripped of false achievements and performative success. We parted with no dramatic declarations of forgiveness or renewed friendship, just the quiet acknowledgement that our collision course had ultimately knocked both of us onto better paths. She had her notebook full of quotes about medical ethics. I had my presentation notes and feedback forms. We had our separate lives, connected now only by a history that had shaped us both. Back in my hotel room that night, I called Marcus and told him about the unexpected reunion. He listened patiently, understanding this was no ordinary conference encounter, but a significant moment of closure. When I hung up, I found myself thinking about revenge, what I'd thought it meant at 18 versus what I understood now at 23. The revenge I'd wanted then was to see Brianna suffer as I had suffered. To witness her public humiliation, her loss of status, her dreams crumbling around her. But real revenge, I realized, wasn't about making someone else smaller. It was about refusing to let their actions limit who you could become. It was about growing beyond the injury until it became just another chapter in your story, not the defining one. She sabotaged my college apps. I exposed her cheating scandal to the whole school. And somehow, against all odds, we both ended up exactly where we needed to be, not just professionally but as people. Maybe that's the real revenge against those who wrong us, living well enough to see them as whole, flawed humans rather than villains in our personal narrative. To reach a place where their actions no longer have power over our present. The next morning, as I checked out of the hotel, I caught a glimpse of Brianna in the lobby, her suitcase beside her as she typed rapidly on her laptop. Our eyes met briefly across the space and we exchanged small nods, not quite friendly but respectful. Acknowledgement of the strange, painful journey that had brought us both here. I stepped out into the spring sunshine, my presentation materials tucked under my arm, thinking about parallel paths and intersecting lives. About how the story I'd once framed as a simple tale of betrayal and justified revenge had revealed itself, with time and distance, to be something far more complex. A catalyst for growth, a necessary collision. She sabotaged my college apps. I exposed her cheating scandal. And in the end, we both found our way. Not together, not as friends, but as two people who once brought out the worst in each other, and somehow, through that very destruction, discovered better versions of ourselves in the aftermath. And that, I decided as I hailed a taxi to the airport, was a revenge better than anything I could have planned.